Welcome to this lesson on ratios and proportion. Ratios come up frequently on the LANTITE, often embedded in word problems about recipes, classroom groups, mixing paint, or reading maps. By the end of this lesson, you'll be confident simplifying ratios, finding equivalent ratios, solving proportion problems, and dividing quantities into a given ratio. Here is what we will cover. We will start with the basics of what a ratio is, then move on to simplifying and finding equivalent ratios. After that, we will tackle proportion problems using cross-multiplication and finish with real-world applications like recipe scaling and sharing quantities. These are all common LANTITE question types. A ratio compares two or more quantities of the same kind. We write them with a colon, like 12 to 18. The order matters boys to girls is 12 to 18, but girls to boys would be 18 to 12. Ratios have no units attached to them, and they are closely related to fractions. The ratio 12 to 18 is the same as the fraction 12 over 18. You can also have three-part ratios, like comparing red to blue to green paint. To simplify a ratio, divide every part by the highest common factor. For 12 to 18, the HCF is 6, so we divide both by 6 to get 2 to 3. If your ratio has decimals, multiply all parts by 10 or 100 to make them whole numbers first. If it has fractions, multiply by the lowest common denominator. The key idea is the same as simplifying fractions. Keep dividing until you cannot simplify any further. Let us work through a paint mixing example. A teacher mixes red, blue, and yellow paint in the ratio 15 to 25 to 10. To simplify, we need the highest common factor of all three numbers. The factors of 15 are 1, 3, 5, and 15. The factors of 25 are 1, 5, and 25. The factors of 10 are 1, 2, 5, and 10. The HCF is 5. Dividing each part by 5 gives us 3 to 5 to 2. That is our simplified ratio. Recipe scaling is a very common LANTITE question type. Here, a recipe for 4 servings uses 300 grams of flour and 200 milliliters of milk, and we need to scale it up to 10 servings. First, find the scale factor by dividing the new number of servings by the original. 10 divided by 4 is 2.5. Then multiply each ingredient by 2.5. 300 times 2.5 is 750 grams of flour. 200 times 2.5 is 500 milliliters of milk. A proportion says two ratios are equal. The most powerful technique for solving proportion problems is cross-multiplication. If you have A over B equals C over D, then A times D equals B times C. In our example, 3 over 5 equals X over 20. Cross-multiply, 3 times 20 is 60, and 5 times X is 5X. So 60 equals 5X, meaning X equals 12. This technique works every time you have a missing value in a proportion. Map scales are a classic LANTITE proportion question. The scale 1 to 25,000 means 1 centimeter on the map equals 25,000 centimeters in real life. The towns are 8 centimeters apart on the map, so set up the proportion 1 over 25,000 equals 8 over x. Cross-multiply to get x equals 200,000 centimeters. Now convert. Divide by 100 to get 2,000 meters, then divide by 1,000 to get 2 kilometers. The actual distance is 2 kilometers. Dividing a quantity into a ratio is one of the most important skills for the LANTITE. The method has 3 steps. First, add up all the parts of the ratio to find the total number of parts. Second, divide the total quantity by the total number of parts to find the value of one part. Third, multiply each ratio part by the value of one part. This gives you each share. Let us see this in action with an example. A school receives a $600 grant to split between literacy and numeracy in the ratio 2:3. Step 1. Add the ratio parts. 2 plus 3 equals 5 total parts. Step 2. Find the value of one part. 600 divided by 5 is $120 per part. Step 3. Multiply. Literacy gets 2 parts, so 2 times 120 equals $240. Numeracy gets 3 parts, so 3 times 120 equals $360. Always check your answer by adding the shares. 240 plus 360 equals 600. It checks out. Here is a classroom example. The ratio of students who passed to those who did not is 5:2. 10 students did not pass. The did not pass part of the ratio is 2, and this represents 10 students. So one part equals 10 divided by 2, which is 5 students per part. The total ratio parts are 5 plus 2, which is 7. 7 times 5 gives us 35 students in total. We can check. 25 passed and 10 did not, which is the ratio 5:2. Correct. Now it is your turn. Pause the video and work through these 5 practice problems. Problem 1. Simplify the ratio 45:30. Problem 2. A recipe for 6 cupcakes uses 180 grams of sugar. How much for 15 cupcakes? Problem 3. Divide $120 in the ratio 3:5. Problem 4. A map has a scale of 1 to 50,000 in 2 towns, are 6 centimeters apart on the map. Find the actual distance. Problem 5. In a staff meeting, the ratio of primary to secondary teachers is 4:3, and there are 28 teachers. How many are primary teachers? The answers are shown on screen. Before we wrap up, here are the most common mistakes with ratios. First, getting the order of the ratio wrong. If a question says boys to girls, make sure boys come first. Second, forgetting to simplify fully. Always check whether you can divide further. Third, when sharing in a ratio, dividing by the wrong number. You divide by the total number of parts, not by one of the ratio numbers. And fourth, forgetting to convert units in scale problems. Always make sure your final answer is in the units the question asks for. Let us recap the key ideas. Ratios compare quantities and order matters. To simplify, divide all parts by the highest common factor. Cross-multiplication is your go-to technique for proportion problems. When sharing a quantity in a ratio, add the parts, find the value of one part, then multiply. For scale problems, set up a proportion, and remember to convert units at the end. For recipes, find the scale factor and multiply every ingredient. On the LANTITE, always do a quick sense check. If you are sharing $600 in the ratio 2:3, the larger share must go with the 3, not the 2. Good luck with your practice.